Another episode of Make a Difference with Phil Martelli coming at you. I am Jared Phillips alongside Phil Martelli, the longtime hoops coach. And Phil, the big news, obviously, this week, college basketball is here. The opening night of college hoops.
Well, it all depends on how you look at it. I just want to start with, obviously, gigantic news yesterday in this country. We're going to stick with Make a Difference. And I hope that everybody out there, wherever you fell, that you went out and made a difference. And in future shows, we'll talk about where we're headed. But I don't want anybody to think we're just moving on and moving ahead, because there's a lot to digest there.
Certainly a lot of work to be done. I think we were interested in the start of this show because not only the start of the college hoop season, but obviously a monumentous day with the election. And that is a key goal for this show. But switching gears to hoops, which is something we definitely wanted to talk about, a big night for the city of Philadelphia. Division I teams went 6-0, which has only happened one other time on the same night ever. That was February 8th, 2003, according to Bob Return Jr. That is at Boop Stats. Really cool thing just to see the city do that well, really off the jump, off the start. Some big wins for some teams, some closer wins for some others around the city. We, of course, do want to get into two other programs we'll be keeping a keen eye on this season. That's Bryant and Penn State, also coming away with wins. So all around a pretty big night starting the college hoop season for really a lot of teams we'll be focused on.
Yeah, just so early, and you don't know what the – so you're really scouting your own team in preparation, as opposed to the way you go about scouting all the rest of the year. But now it's over. One game is behind you. Now you move forward, and you want to stay with improvement daily. Improvement daily will be the mantra for all of the teams that we're following so closely.
We had been speaking about some of the more, I would say, intriguing or more fun openers you've had in your career. You wanted to bring up a few. I mean, I know there's two particularly that really stand out for you.
Well, there's two, but I had to add a third since we talked, and that would be the opener at Delaware, 95-96 at Delaware. And I wasn't really sure. I wasn't dead certain as to how this would go, how it would feel. I can remember being very, very, very uptight. We turned the ball over a lot, and luckily we had Reggie Townsend and Mark Bass to kind of steer us home. And that team ended up in the NIT final. The other one that stands out to me is on 20th wedding anniversary, November 20th, 1996, at Duke. And it was the preseason NIT. We lost to Duke. That team ended up in the Sweet 16. And then Gonzaga at the Garden, a Philadelphia takeover of the whole building. Spectacular. I think they were 9th in the country. We were 15th in the country. And that was the night that Dick Vitale christened Jameer Nelson as the best point guard in America. Little did he know that he would also become the best player in America, and that team ended up in the Elite Eight. So those three stand out to me.
I mean, the 03-04 opener obviously goes without saying, such an incredible game. I want to take you back to that Duke opener. I mean, going down there, playing down there, that must have been, for just a second-year head coach, that must have been intense. Obviously, that was such a good Duke team, 10th in the country. You're just trying to kind of sink your claws into some success. That team ends up being very good for you, but to have to kind of go into that environment as a newer coach must have been nuts.
But one of the things, and we should talk to our coaches that come on here throughout the year about what we're all in this for, is to create memories for our players. So we're starting Philadelphia kids, and their first game of the year is at Duke. They've watched Cameron. They've watched Duke basketball for all these years. So for them, it was really, really, really special. And we played well, I think, for about 25 minutes. And then the noise and everything got away from us. Opening game for Arthur Ya Davis and Rob Haskins. And that team went on to do extraordinary things on their own. But I hope that all those players have that memory of playing at Duke.
Yeah, that's certainly a bucket list item for any college basketball player, right? To get down there. You also wanted to really kind of take us under the hood a little bit every week and talk about what maybe some people on the outside who aren't as familiar with coaching, the coaching world, can really take away from this show and take away from all of your experience here. You were talking about some practice do's and don'ts, and you wanted to kind of expand on that this week.
And I think that really, in a way, you can take this into your corporate boardroom. You can take this into your classroom. You can take this into your home, and that practice is our time, and the games is for the players. Teaching day to day is for the teacher. The exams are for the young people involved. For me, practice had to be effective practice, not just fill the time. So my suggestion was always to do skill development, about 25 minutes of skill development, layups, finishes, a team drill, a defensive fundamental, one-on-one, which is really big, and then position shooting. And then I think you take your pie and you decide, what kind of team are you going to be? Are you going to be an offensive team or are you going to be a defensive team? If it's offensive, then give that more minutes than even your defensive segment. And if anybody says we want to be the same, then you're not treating them right. You're not going to be the same in both areas. You have to identify yourself. So player development, team offense, which would include some stations, teach, execute, compete. Teach, execute, compete. Do your fundamental breakdown. Do your transition drill there because that impacts your offensive game. Then in the middle, we're about halfway through practice, shooting and foul shooting, competitive. Come back with our defensive work. Same thing. Teach, execute, compete. Defensive stations would be part where you're doing the fundamentals over and over and over. And then the last segment is a competition. The competition would include situational, right? Up 3, 17 seconds left. That's when you decide if you're going to foul, not spur of the moment in a game, but you have to look at all those competitions. My last year at Michigan, we were 4-12 the year before in games decided by 5 points or less. So we went back and did every situation. 3 minutes left, down 1. What was the result? And let your coaches coach, let your teachers teach, and then let the players execute. And we always did it under the pressure of time and score. It's a really big deal. And I'm anxious to get our coaches in the future to talk about practice because that's the coach's time.
I find it fascinating to hear it at this high of a level for myself, obviously going through basketball practice all those years, many oftentimes with obviously, my pops, Larry, who I'm sure took a few pages out of your book, but also definitely a different and totally foreign environment in its own right. But it's cool, really, like I said, just to get out of the hood and kind of hear at that level what people are looking for and what you're hoping to do with your players.
And I hope that people enjoy that. And let's keep that up. Let's keep that as a segment, just like we're going to keep Martelli Minute.
Martelli Minute isn't going anywhere for anyone.
Can't go anywhere. You know why? Because Status Solutions Network is committed to making a difference by providing Alicia's Law, compliance safety technology to schools throughout a grant of use, ensuring that financial barriers never stop, never stand, never get in the way of student and proper safety. Each community has the power to create real change. Learn more at statussolution.com. They're our sponsor, and we are really appreciative of their support. So the Martelli Minute. Look to build real relationships by asking interesting questions, actively listening, and most importantly, staying in the moment. Live a happier life by avoiding fault finding in yourself, first and foremost, and others. And then the third one, life demands active participation. Can't be on the sideline. Can't be on the sideline in sport. Can't be on the sideline in family. Can't be on the sideline in community. We need everybody out there to make a difference. Life demands active participation.
Terrific stuff, as always. Stuff you can take with you every day learning, every day growing as people. I know I am growing, I am learning each and every day with Martelli Minute. We have an unbelievable guest for you. Another week of really another all-timer, really, and one who's been with you for a really long time.
50 years.
50 years.
50 years we've been friends.
It's almost twice as long as I've been alive.
Okay,
you've
we
been
don't have to go into all that, though. That's really not that necessary.
We really got a treat here. A very special guest joining this show, Geno Auriemma, the UConn legend. Geno, great to have you on. Phil and I here. Amazing you could join us, and hope you're doing well.
Yeah, no, thanks. I'm glad we finally got it together, and sounds like you guys got a good thing going there, and happy to be a part of it.
Gee, really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure you get hit with this question, as I do often. How long have you known each other? What was it like? And if I say Bishop Kenrick, what reflections do you have of our time together there?
I would say the first thing that comes to mind is the journey from having gone to school there, played there against some of the great coaches in Philadelphia history, and then showing up at one of the games and actually sitting on the bench and seeing those guys down on the other bench. And it's still, I remember it's still the very first game, and I couldn't, it was hard to imagine ever being in that situation. And it became, even though it wasn't a full-time job, it became a full-time job. For the first time, I felt like coaching was a full-time job, and that it's something that I wanted to really, keep doing for a long, long time.
And there were days, Jared, where we were together probably 350 days out of a year. Neither of us had children. Maybe Philip was young then. And we spent a lot of Saturday afternoons waiting until 5 o'clock and going to Center Square Golf Course. I don't think it's there anymore because you could go on for $5. And I would play golf until it got dark. He would play golf. I would play around at golf.
Yeah, I heard that one of you was a golfer and then another one of you played golf. I'd love to hear. I mean, be honest. Who was the better golfer there? Because he's already made illusions.
Question.
Well, I mean, that wasn't. When I said basketball was a job, I didn't mean I didn't have time for like other stuff. I mean, for Phil, it was probably more than a job because he didn't make time for other stuff like playing golf. So he was way better at coaching basketball, and I was way better at playing golf. So, we had both things covered.
And then the only other thing I'll add to that is, on our podcast today is, at least for 1 year, I think it may have been 2 years, this is the head tennis coach at Bishop Kenrick High School. Geno was the head tennis coach also.
That's a part of my life I don't remember. I don't ever remember going to a class. I don't even know that we had tennis courts. I have no idea where any of that took place. It, I am truly shocked to hear that. I really am. I feel bad for those kids that actually were, you know, were on the tennis team because I don't know any of them. I couldn't remember any of them if you put them in a line.
There you go. Gee, first year at UConn. So I know the journey. There were other interviews. There was a time where could a male get a job in women's basketball, and UConn taps you on the shoulder. What's your fondest memory of that first year, that first kind of starting to take a swing at the, at the ball, so to speak?
Uh, uh, I would say driving up to campus every day, not knowing uh, where we were headed. It was everything was new. We're not supposed to be very good. The program is, I've used the words, glorified. It was an intramural program with scholarships. So I remember driving up, hoping that today was going to be a good day for practice. How much time went into planning practice and how many things we tried to do at practice every day. And but I guess the best part of that first year, two parts actually. We won our first 7 games, and in one of them we were down like 16 or 17 against UMass, and we came back to win. And we won our first 7 games, and the year before, the previous 4 years, they won 9 games each year. So I remember the excitement, the kids on the team, they thought, we were going to the NCAA tournament or something. Then we lost 9 of our next 11 or something like that. I forget what it was. But that stretch where we won our first 7 games, those kids were so happy. They had never experienced success like that before. So that and at the end of the year, when we had a goal, we don't want to finish 8th or 9th. Okay, there was 9 teams in the league back then. If you finished 8th or 9th, you had to play in the playing game to go to the Big East tournament. So the goal was we can't finish 8th or 9th, and we didn't. So that was a huge win for the players, and it made some of the seniors, it made their career, the fact that they could actually be part of the Big East tournament. So little victories, meant a lot back then.
So you walk in there, one winning season in UConn's history,
mm-hmm.
and you've become the preeminent women's basketball program of all time. So sticking with the theme of this podcast, who, what, and how made the difference? How did you go from that to the preeminent program in the history of the game?
Certainly not by planning on it. There was never a plan to do that. Like most great things that happen, somebody does something pretty well, and then they do it again, and then they do it again, and before you know it, they build on that, and 3 becomes 13, and 13 becomes 30, and then 30 becomes 60, and 60 becomes 120. But you never think that far ahead. So, who made the biggest difference? I think in the hiring process, I was fortunate enough to get a terrific assistant coach from Rutgers, Chris Daly, who knew a lot of things that I didn't know, and who could do a lot of things that I couldn't do. So that started the process. Gave me a lot of comfort knowing that I had somebody working with me that could answer a lot of the questions that I couldn't answer I mean, I would have if I had to, but I just, that wasn't my skill set. So that's, you know, who and the how is by taking some of the lessons that I learned in coaching in high school and playing in high school, and realizing that you could transfer that to the college level, that you could run your college program like, a really, really good high school program is run. Like we felt like we could do that. We felt like we could take our experiences. Both of us, played it went to Catholic high schools and played in Catholic high schools. And, Chris being a much better player and played for a national championship at Rutgers. But we had great experiences, and the lessons that I learned playing at Kenrick, coaching at Kenrick. I thought you got to get a certain kind of kid, and we did. Got a kid that understood the values of, when you do something right, you get rewarded. When you do something that's not right, there are consequences. And that could be coached and wanted to be part of something. So we got a bunch of those kids, and we haven't changed in the 40 years now that I've been here. That hasn't changed one bit. The kind of kids that we get, what we do, we still try to do it like a high school program. It's much harder now than it was back then, obviously, but and then by forcing the university to embrace us, I think that was the final step. In the beginning, they just wanted a team. They didn't really care if it was a championship team. They just wanted a team, and they wanted the kids to have some success and to graduate and go on with their lives. So we forced the university and the athletic department to embrace the fact that we were going to be really good, and we were going to. One of the guys that was in the committee that hired me actually said, after I got the job, actually told the administration here, you guys have a huge problem on your hands. This guy's not going to be easy. And he meant that like in a really good way. Like this is going to change, and he's going to force you guys to change. And we did. And they embraced us, and, and we never looked back.
So you end up in stores, and I've often used this. There was a life lesson in there, by the way. When Geno was talking about Chris Daly, he said, she worked with me, right? A lot of people that get in these positions as coaches, as CEOs, as principals, they use the word for. Geno and Chris Daly work for University of Connecticut. They work with each other. Powerful life lesson in a small word right there. Philanthropic work is important to you, I think, because of the way you were raised, and that you make a difference in Connecticut. Could you just fill us in on what's closest to your heart in terms of your philanthropic work?
I remember growing up, and certainly not having money, but my parents were very, very, very generous people, very giving people, to the point where, and I certainly believe this, when I was a kid in Italy, poor people are very giving because I think they understand that other people need, that there's a need, and, they try to fill a need if they can. And even if they can't, they really do whatever they can to fill a need. And it makes them feel really good about giving, even more so than getting. And I kind of grew up in that environment when I got to Norristown, of giving felt better to me than getting, because I knew I wasn't getting a lot, but whatever I got, I appreciated, but I could give either give my time or give somebody a ride, or give somebody a pat on the back, or give somebody a dime because they only had a nickel, things like that. So when I got here, I was way better at it than I am now. I gave more of my time. I gave more of, you know, more of myself to anyone who asked for it. I didn't have the money necessarily to do a lot back then, but when I first started making some money, it was easy. It was easy for me to get into causes like the educational part of my family. All teachers, my two daughters are teachers. Kathy, my wife, is a teacher, and I'm a teacher, obviously. So we did a lot for the library here at the University of Connecticut. And then, when I started having children, it became, we got involved in some things with the Connecticut Children's Medical Center. And, there's 3 great children's hospitals on the East Coast, I think. There's Boston, there's Philadelphia, and there's Connecticut Children's. And so, we give about $250,000 maybe we raise every year for them, among other things that we do with appearances, and that's been my my number one thing for the last 25 years. I always think that people who never get an opportunity, you have to have a feel for that. People who get opportunities and squander them, I have less of a sympathy for them. But people who never get an opportunity, but when you're talking with kids, some of them aren't going to have an opportunity to even see if they have an opportunity. They're in the process of, there's 3-month-olds that have already had 4 or 5 surgeries, heart surgeries, whatever. A guy that works for me at my restaurant, he told me his son, Ellis, if he had been born 2 years earlier, he would have died. And because of what happened in these past 2 years, and the money that we've raised, they were able to save his life, and he's going to have a great life. So, it's things like that that make you feel really, really part of the community, part of something bigger than just winning basketball games. So that's been who I've been, and now I have the opportunity to do more things like that. So I get a kick out of it, and so do my kids, and my family does, and brings a lot of satisfaction to me, knowing that I'm making a difference.
There you go. There you go. Gee, the women's game. So if I think sometimes people get confused over the last 18 months, maybe over 2 years, that they think it was a rocket, that you all jumped on Caitlin Clark's back and went straight up. But you've been there at the beginning of the ride, so to speak, and it's an ascent. Where does the game grow from Caitlin to Paige, knowing that before Caitlin was Brianna and Diana and Sue and Rebecca and all of those, Dawn Staley as a player? Where does it go? Can it continue to climb, and will it climb on the back of now Paige Bueckers?
Yeah, I kind of liken it to the college men's programs players of the late 60s, early 70, right around that time when I was in high school, where there was a lot of really great basketball being played all over the country, but nobody knew about it. So if you lived in Philly, you knew that the schools in Philly, the Big Five, were the best 5 schools in America, because you had no idea anybody else was any good because you never saw them. Then when I went and left to go to UVA, and I was in the ACC, and I was like, those people in Philly are out of their mind. This is a whole different world, dude. But as we were growing up, all we knew was in our backyard. We couldn't see anything. UCLA had all these great teams, and unless you were an avid fan, you didn't know those guys. You knew Lou Alcindor. That's it. You knew eventually you knew Bill Walton. But there was a game played at the Astrodome between Houston and UCLA, and 60,000 people, whatever it was, came to the game. And all of a sudden, everything changed. There were a lot of good players before that, but after that, it changed. And it changed more when, Magic and Bird came out of high school and played in college. And it changed again when Jordan came out. And then the NBA did the exact same thing. There were a lot of great NBA players, but I tell people, they don't believe me. I said, listen, when I was growing up in Philly and the Sixers were playing the Celtics in the playoffs to see who was going to the finals, the game was on tape delay the next day. All right. So you couldn't even watch the game live. All right. So there were a lot of great players, and no one saw them play. But after Bird and Magic and then Jordan, the game took off. The women's game now is exactly the same way. There were so many great players that people have never seen. And people bitch and moan about, well, why didn't they pay more attention back then? Because they didn't. Like, it's a very simple answer. Because they didn't, and now they do. So, the point is, where are we going next? And if we think that, one kid, one Caitlin Clark is going to be enough to take this where it needs to go, it's not. Or one Paige Beckers, it's not. What they do is they show you the way. They show you what's possible. And then the people that run the operation have to now capitalize on it. And then the younger generation, the high school people, have to prepare these kids so that when they get to college, we have something good to work with. And then we send them up to the WNBA, and then they have something good to work with. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing. So it still comes back to those of us that are in charge of the game. Are we making the game better every day? Are we making our players better every day? And are we preparing them, and in so many more ways than just scoring points? I think one of the things that makes Caitlin Clark, who she is the way she is with people. She connects with people, and people connect with her. Now, she talks a lot of shit on the court. All right. Believe me. When people talk about in WNBA, why are these people beating up Caitlin Clark? Because she talks a lot of shit on the court. All right. That's what makes her good. So she's not like this, angel walking around there and everybody else is beating her up. Nah, she's got a lot to say. She's a lot like Paige. Those guys have a lot to say. They just do it subtly, and they're tough. And so, we need more of that. And we need more great games. We need more better games. We need more rules modifications. So just like the college game, it's funny that you asked that, Phil, because one thing that I think is happening, the women's game is outpacing the men's game in college. And I'm not saying that the game is better or it's played at a higher level. I just think it's more popular. It's going to become more popular. And the reason for that is those guys stay for 3 or 4 years. And, fans fall in love with these kids.
Couldn't agree with you. Couldn't agree with you more. And then, like, kind of, so you have young players and you recruit the best players and the best people and that kind of thing. How much time are you spending now getting them to understand their branding? Like, it's branding for them, it's branding for your program, but it's also branding for the game. That to me was what grabs me about Paige and Caitlin Clark in particular. They are working their brands, but they're also branding the game as being more personable, being like, you know what, that kid's walking the hallways at some high school in the middle of Oklahoma. How do you help your players with their branding?
Yeah, and educating educating the players in what actually constitutes a brand that you can monetize, that you can grow. So, for instance, getting when Paige got here from high school, I said, you're like Paige Kardashian, man. Like, I don't understand you. Like, what makes you so famous? Like, what have you done? Like, you got a bunch of videos of you playing in high school in Hopkins, Minnesota. So what? Like, that makes you famous, and everybody wants your autograph and everybody wants your picture, and you got all these followers. Well, 2 years after being at UConn, she tripled her number of followers. Because why? Because she became National Player of the Year. She was the best player in college basketball. So now she had a reason. Now she had a reason. Before, there was, well, we think this kid could be different. Well, then she proves she's different. So what I try to educate our players is, you want to grow your brand, you need to be different. I don't mean you need to be different by doing dumb stuff. I'm saying you need to be the kind of player that people go, wow, I've not seen that. Or that kid plays really hard, or that kid's competitive, right? Or that kid really is a great, whatever. And then you start to build a brand. But how good is your brand if your team loses? So you're trying to educate them, and your brand is going to be really, really big if you play in a program that wins, because now you're labeled a winner. So your brand has winning attached to it. Otherwise, you're just a person with a brand, and people don't just think, yeah, well, how come every team you play on loses? So there's a lot that goes into this. And I think that, with all these kids having agents now, and all these kids having so many opportunities that come to them, I admire Paige a lot, because we talk about this a lot, she's kept the main thing. She works so hard on her game, even now, every day. People don't see it. The kid works so hard on her game that she knows, this is what my love is. This is my passion. My brand is what's come out of this. This has created the brand, not the brand is bigger than my game. My game is way bigger than my brand. And that's kind of what I admire most about her.
Powerful. So, G, obviously I knew it. This could go on for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. But everybody that's in this segment, and full transparency, I told you this on the phone, but we had Cal last week.
Oh, geez. If you'd have told me that before, I might have had second thoughts about doing this.
Well, there was at one point where we were going to put you together, and I thought, no, there's not enough.
No.
What do we do here? Tape it? Or
there's not enough bandwidth for the podcast to have contained both of you now. That would have been too much.
So
does he speak with an accent now? Does he speak with a Southern accent now? Does he sound like he's from Arkansas?
Yeah.
Is he doing the pig suey thing?
Yeah. And he wanted to know.
He's never seen a pig in his life.
Yeah. He also wanted to know if I wanted barbecue. He was going to send me barbecue. I said, no.
Yeah. There you go.
You turned down the barbecue? I would have taken it.
Well, you didn't get offered it.
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
So, G, last question. Who's made a difference to Geno Auriemma? Who in your life has made that difference?
Well, I've been a big proponent of this, and I don't know exactly how much of it is true. I take it as truth for me, and I apply it to other people, and it may completely be erroneous for those other people. But somebody wanted to do a story at one point about why there are so many tremendously successful coaches, and I don't mean basketball coaches, but just coaches that were Italian descent.
I remember this.
Okay. And you say, well, and basketball seems to be, a ton of them. You mentioned one, you mentioned Cal and Izzo and, yourself and Valvano and, probably go on, Massimino, Louis Carnesecca, Patino. I mean, you can just go on and on and on and mention a lot of people. I'm sure I'm forgetting a bunch of them. And same in pro football, right? Same in baseball, right? So as you go through that, you say, well, what is one thing I think that a lot of those kinds of people have that could connect them somehow? And I would say it's a somewhat sort of, for me, it was a great connection to their moms, to the way their moms raised them, to the way they grew up with a sense of empathy for other people, kindness, wanting to nurture and take care of, wanting to use, tough love and sarcastic and threatening and guilt, and especially since we were probably all Catholic. So, anything that would make you feel horrible, all those people I mentioned probably came into contact with nuns at some time in their life. So all this stuff, all these women that influenced our lives, all for the better. And I think we take that with us, and it makes us, the kind of people that, we may not do great things all the time. We may not, be successful all the time, and we may do, rotten things. But at the core, when you strip it all down, we have the heart of a mom.
Wow.
We come off as tough guys a lot of times, and we want to be viewed as tough guys. We have a guy that just got elected. He's got no Italian blood in him whatsoever. So I think for me, that's what it was. My mom.
Wow. Well, Jared, I told you a long time ago when you came up with this idea that this was going to be, and I wanted to break ourselves in, because this is a really, really big deal. So Geno, thanks, man. And I just have, I'm watching, I'm there. And I only have one thing for you. Go get number 12 this year.
Yeah. I listen, I keep thinking back, man. It's 75 degrees today in Connecticut on November 6th. Not a cloud in the sky. And all my friends my age are playing golf. And I'm in practice a little later this afternoon, trying to get some 18-year-old to not look at me sideways because they just missed their fourth straight layup, and I'm threatening to take away their scholarship. So there goes. My mom would not be too proud of me the way I am with these young people. I'm so out of patience, and I should be enjoying life, and here I am, miserable like a son of a gun, because I'm still doing the same thing I did, 50 years ago at Bishop Kenrick. Mike Gallagher was here at practice yesterday, and obviously he played, when we were there, and I remember I said, "How old are you?" He goes, 62 or 61, 62. It just knocked me right off my ass, man. I could not believe that that kid is 60 some years old, and I was only 8 years older than him when I was coaching him.
That's right.
And now I'm 50 years older than the players I'm coaching.
And he's just starting out. Michael Gallagher starting out as a high school girls basketball coach in Northern Virginia, and he's taking a tour. And he said,
"Unbelievable.
Do you think?" And I said, "Don't even ask the question. Do I think that Geno will allow you into practice? You're in. Once you're with us, you're with us, right?" So
yeah, but he couldn't get in the building because the doors were locked. So he found a door that was propped open, And he said if the Philly me would come out, I would just broken in. I said, yeah, I know. I'm surprised you didn't throw a rock through it.
Good luck, G. My best to your family.
All right, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank
Geno,
you.
thank you so much.
All right.
Good luck this
See you
season.
guys.
Whew.
Yeah, that was as expected.
Yes.
That was as expected. He was a little, I would say, modest about his golf game compared to you. That was a little surprised.
No, he can really, really, really play. And
I don't know where he
So-
gets the time. He's always playing and so deep into the season.
but you know what he's smart at? He's smart that when he shuts it down, he shuts it out. And but yet he works as hard today as he did 45 years ago with recruiting. So, man, and the only thing I would add for him, and I get it, he wears sneakers to work every day. Think about that.
Good on your feet.
You got to wear sneakers to work when you coach. That's a big deal.
Oh, I hear you on that. And one thing, of course, I know you assumed I was going to bring this up, but that motherly instinct he spoke about was just, that really hit it home for me,
Oh, for
obviously,
sure.
for a number of reasons. But it's just really impressive to hear these guys still speak about the joy. I know, he gets a little curmudgeon being like, I can't believe I'm still dealing with this, on a daily practice. But, when he sees those true teaching moments and those opportunity to care for people, you can tell that love is still there, that care is still there. And that's why it's why he's been as successful as he has.
Well, he's the greatest women's coach of all time. And sometime in November, he will take over from Tara Vanderveer, having the most wins. And I think that's the most wins of any basketball coach, either gender. So that was special. So we got to find out.
I know everybody is clamoring. I
don't know if they're clamoring, but we have to tell them.
I'm sure there's at least two people that are curious.
Yeah.
Where
One
the
would be
world
my wife.
is Phil Martelli.
Where
She hadn't
was
seen
I?
you
And where
in days.
where am
So
I?
this is her opportunity. To
So
catch
this
up with
week
you.
I had a really cool opportunity, back-to-back nights, Friday and Saturday night. F&M had a tip-off celebration of basketball, 125 years of men's basketball, 50 years of women's basketball. Coach Nick and Coach Bree invited me up to be the keynote speaker. It was just a great, great, great time up there in Lancaster, PA. The next night, I got a call to go over to Drexelbrook, right here in Drexel Hill, and the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame asked me to MC. How about these inductees? This is just a partial list. Ray Dinger, Mike Musina, Mike Gooman, Hall of Famer Andre Reed, Kutztown, Super Bowls, Canton, and then Jay Wright. And I was able to MC it. Now I did ask, since I was inducted in the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame and long time ago, 2007, I thought like that must have been why I got in, that I would MC a future event. So that was a great time. I took in a Drexel basketball practice the day before their opener. That was terrific. Monday night, you talked about the opening of basketball, split screen, right, on a computer, watching Penn State demolish Binghamton. And then on the TV with some apparatus, we were able to watch simultaneously watch Bryant versus Dean College. Terrific. Excited for both of them. Still undefeated. You can't be undefeated unless you win that first one and then keep going from there.
I want to ask, when it comes to Bryant and Penn State, you mentioned it yourself. The stress, the anxiety of coaching, how much does that tick up a notch when you're watching your sons coaching in those openers?
It's really tough. It's really tough. And watching is harder for me than if I'm there in person. If I'm there in person,
You can yell something from the stand.
No, I don't yell. I just kind of I can take it in. But when I'm watching, even over these last several years at Michigan, and I had some kind of hookup to watch their games, I would yell and get much more animated than I am in person. So I'm excited for both of them. Looking forward to seeing them in person real soon. But it won't be in this next week, because the next week I got a couple of special things coming.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Bryant, Penn State both exceeded expectations last year, raised the bar a little bit, but let's hear it. Where are you headed next?
On Thursday evening, I'm going to the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame just as a guest. Paul Westhead is being inducted. Chase Utley is being inducted. Ryan Howard is being inducted. My dear friend Angelo Cataldi is being inducted. And then my family is being inducted. Jameer Nelson is being inducted. I'm going to be able to stop by there, congratulate them, hopefully get a couple of pictures, and just person to person congratulate them on their wonderful achievements. I'll leave there and go to the Independence Mission Schools, an evening of thanks. You know, thank you is the most important word in the English language. And the Independence Mission Schools have asked me to come speak to their donors. I'm looking forward to that. Friday morning, PHL 17 college basketball preview. I'm going to have that chance. And then breaking news. Fordham at Seton Hall, Saturday, 12 o'clock game. Fox Sports, my TV debut.
They're letting you on TV?
They're going to let me on TV. And maybe they'll go from like but I got a haircut. I got 4 minutes.
You got a haircut.
No, 4-minute haircut. Spin the chair one time. I'm done. $20. I'm out.
You spent $20 on a haircut.
I appreciate that. And then, how about this? 12 o'clock game at Seton Hall. Back in the car, driving back, Overbrook Country Club, the wedding of Joseph Ryan, our nephew, and Maggie is at 5 o'clock. I'll probably miss the dance contest, but I would win the dance contest, and I'll look really good, because on my way down the Jersey Turnpike, I'm going to stop at one of the rest stops and put on my tux so I can walk into that wedding at 5 o'clock. Got to make it happen. Congratulations to Joseph and Maggie.
Congratulations to Joe and Maggie. Do you have a phone booth along the Jersey Turnpike that you can kind of Superman into this tux?
No. You know, they're all named for famous people from Jersey. I'll just stop in a rest stop. Maybe I'll, pick up a trinket, one of those things. It's a shot glass that says New, even though I don't drink, I'm thinking a shot glass that says New Jersey. That'll be my wedding gift.
I have a couple things to unpack there. Namely, you winning the dance contest. I have seen you at both of my brother's weddings. I have not seen you sniff the dance floor, if I remember correctly.
I'm out there a lot.
Incognito, I guess. I don't know. You'd be a pretty recognizable face among the crowd there. I do want to circle back to a couple of those things you have coming up. Some really exciting stuff. You failed to mention Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. You're a recent inductee in there as well, and it's going to be, I think, very special to be there, particularly for Jameer. I mean, that is just
it's really. I'm so excited and so appreciative. And this is the way my brain works. The night that I went into the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, across the parking lot after the dinner went Philip, my son, Philip Stephen, my grandson, and we walked into Game 5 of the Phillies World Series versus the Astros, and they lost. And if you remember, Chase McCormick, a local guy, made a catch against the wall. I can't believe I remember all this. Schwarber hit a blistering shot up the first base line. Ball hit the bag. He caught it and stepped on. I can't do it. I can't.
No, I'll tell you a little Chase McCormick story. I remember walking in to play a game. I believe it was a Henderson, Westchester Henderson. And I remember he was not playing on the freshman JV team. He was a freshman on varsity. And I remember he just like casually walked on the court, my size, and just dunks the ball. And I'm like, okay. And then I see him go and rob a play like that. I'm like, yeah, I've seen those ops before. Yeah, that makes sense. But
he's a different guy. And then, you know what, before we go, I do have something really special, because people are taking advantage of our website and our emails. We got a great suggestion today for a guest. We're going to talk about next week's guest, where we're going. We're going remote.
That's the plan.
We're going remote.
We're taking the show on the road.
I do have to share this. This is from Kenneth Goldberg, who is Chief Technical Support Branch, Operations Division, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Sent me this and wanted to tell us, U.S. Navy ship John B. Mertha, the ship's motto is "Make a Difference," and they have belt buckles, shirts, hats, and I'm expecting that they're going to send us a bunch of gear from the John B. Mertha U.S. Navy ship. So people are out there paying attention. Keep those suggestions coming. If we can get better, that's what we're trying to do.
I got one last one before I tease our guests and be on our way out and everything like that. Saturday on the call, you've done the studio stuff before. You a little nervous as a color commentator?
Yes, I am.
I think that's a healthy amount of nervousness and anxiety, right?
No, I'm anxious about making sure I get names right. And then I'm sure you won't find this. One of the other things in some of my auditions that has been in my head is you have a lot of great stories, but they have to be shorter. So being concise and making sure I get names right is driving me to stay up very, very late at night now.
That's why I put you in the podcast format. You can kind of let it rip a little bit more,
Yeah.
But in TV,
at Seton Hall
there
Saturday,
are commercial breaks and all that.
And then at Xavier next Tuesday.
Yeah, some awesome.
But then back for November 13th, the Traveling Road Show.
That's right. We have 4 St. Joe's Prep students that we're really excited to have on the show. It is going to be really cool just to see how they're making a difference among their students' lives in their school community. You're really excited about this because that's your alma mater.
No, it's and I don't hesitate in making the statement. I think it's the finest high school in America, and if not, it's one of the finest. And it's because of the people. It's because of the air. I don't know how they do it, but when you read and when you meet these 4 young guys who are truly, truly making a difference, I've been excited every guest segment, but this is different because I'm through and through a prepper.
I think that is abundantly clear, but they raised you well among obviously Graham and Pop and everybody who had a hand in doing so.
No question about it.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you loved what you heard today, as we mentioned, that's going to be coming to you every single week. Another great guest on tap. If you haven't already, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Make a Difference Pod. Feel free to subscribe, throw this episode a like if you don't mind. We are Make a Diff Pod on X or Twitter, if you will. Make a Difference with Phil Martelli on Facebook. He is Phil_Martelli on Instagram. That is where you get the Martelli Minute. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, we would love a 5-star rating. A few people have done that already. I don't know if it was provoked by us or not, but appreciate that. That always helps people reach the podcast and get a chance to check out the show. So that's the housekeeping on that end. But next week, really fun opportunity to take the show on the road and see how we can handle a hostile environment, a hostile crowd. I guess that's a home game for you, really.
Well, a crowd. We'll just say it's a crowd because it's more than 2. It has to be a crowd.
Fantastic. We'll see you next week.